Good day, my friends! Today I'd like to bring you a story filled with world-changing skills, tragic romance, and misunderstandings. Now, before I begin, allow me to preface that I've no actual records that prove or disprove this tale. After all, these words came from the sobbing stories of a drunkard, from an apprentice, from a couple of men. Or so I was led to believe. However, I personally found this story to be too tantalizing to ignore, even if it was a fabrication. So, let's come together and hear the tale of Gerolt Blackthorn, the world's greatest forge master, and Rowena, the entrepreneur who has helped create entire towns. Our story begins with a young Gerolt having just accepted an apprenticeship under one of Ul'dah's most famous smiths, Forge Master Heidolf. Gerolt had just come of age and showed great promise in the crafting field, so Heidolf took him and another boy named Ramon under his wing. To study under Forge Master Heidolf was an honor, but Gerolt and Ramon weren't slouches, even in their youth. Both of them proved to be excellent craftsmen in their own right, producing fine works that began to garner much attention. Their training continued, with the various weapons and items they made becoming centerpieces for many wealthy individuals and proud gladiators. As their apprenticeship blossomed, Gerolt and Ramon's names as master crafters began to soar thanks to their already famous mentor. But as their work began to get noticed worldwide, Heidolf realized that Gerolt would soon surpass him, making the Forge Master envious of his student. Their forge gained many recurring customers, one of which was a fiery woman named Rowena. She was a young trader who had used her quick wit to get in the good graces of many businesses, from arms dealers to art displays. She had an eye for quality and saw just how amazing Gerolt's work truly was. Not only did she fall for his talent and productions, but as she got to know Gerolt, she began to fall in love with the man as well. Gerolt, who was smitten by her as well, began to court Rowena, and the beginnings of a passionate romance began to blossom. However, this was all to Ramon's chagrin, as he also had feelings for Rowena, but she clearly had no interest in him. Time would pass, but as more pieces in Gerolt's name began to be released, Rowena started to notice something strange. The quality of the handiwork coming from Gerolt and Ramon was dropping quickly, but the prices were rising. She decided to investigate, and what she discovered shocked her. Forge Master Heidolf, their master, in his envy and greed, was publishing low-quality scrap as fine works made by his talented apprentices. In a twisted way, Heidolf believed that selling the names of his students was the best way for them to pay him back. You see, in his envy, Heidolf made some deals and gained connections with Ul'dah's black market. Using his new connections, he was able to sell off forgeries as full-priced pieces and was steadily making a fortune from it. Rowena was furious and confronted Heidolf, presenting the proof she had collected. Heidolf didn't know what to do. Rowena represented a myriad of business connections. She alone could undo his name and his smithy if she decided to spread the truth. Rowena told Heidolf to confess to his crimes and left it at that. But the Forge Master had other plans. Plans to make the clever girl happen upon an unfortunate accident. Gerolt eventually learned the truth, and what Heidolf planned to do with the woman he loved. He begged with his mentor, stating that he'd happily forge for the rest of his days under Heidolf if he simply left Rowena alone. But the Forge Master had already lost all his reason and common sense. In his envy, he saw Gerolt's pleas for peace as insults to him and his mentorship. In a blind rage, he attempted to kill Gerolt. However, the young smith overpowered and beat his mentor to the ground, with Ramon, his fellow apprentice, as the only witness. Ramon saw everything, but was always jealous of Gerolt. He wasn't just jealous of his forge brother's skills, but for taking the heart of the woman he adored as well. As such, he said nothing about what happened between Heidolf and Gerolt to anyone. With no one to stand up for him, he was cast out of Heidolf's smithy with only his skills to his name as Gerolt took to the road. Rowena heard that Gerolt had been thrown out and knew something must have went horribly wrong. So she dropped everything in Ul'dah and pursued the man she loved. As Ramon watched her leave to find Gerolt, he realized that he not only failed the woman of his dreams, but his fellow apprentice as well. Guilt tore at Ramon's heart, eventually making him put his hammer down and quit Heidolf's smithy. With both of his star pupils gone, Heidolf's forge fell into ruin. His work was nothing compared to what Gerolt had made, and he lost all his business assets. In his grief, Heidolf would take his own life, bearing the first dagger Gerolt had ever made, and plunged it into his own heart. Eventually, Rowena caught up to Gerolt, and together they confessed their love for one another. They began to travel to faraway lands as a couple, and eventually they would finally exchange their vows, with Rowena becoming his wife and Gerolt her husband. For a time, they lived out their lives in blissful matrimony together. But one day, a letter arrived for Gerolt, penned by Ramon. You see, after putting down his hammer, Ramon became somewhat of a black market tradesman as he took advantage of Heidolf's old connections. It's with these connections, Ramon learned that in order to leave Ul'dah in search for Gerolt, Rowena ruined more than a couple contracts, taking the money and running. Her previous employers were not pleased, to say the absolute least, and were going to send debt collectors to settle the score. Gerolt knew what this meant and feared for his wife's safety. Gerolt talked with Rowena, telling her that he wanted to borrow an immense amount of gil from her to start his own forge. She saw no reason to say no, gifting her husband the money. However, Gerolt would run away with the gil, handing it off to Ramon, who would in turn use it to pay off the debt collectors, clearing Rowena's name. Ramon had agreed to help Gerolt on one condition, that he never tell Rowena about any of this, including her massive debt. Gerolt reluctantly agreed. He felt he couldn't go back to his loving wife empty-handed, so he didn't. Rowena was now alone, with a fortune gone as well. Weeks became months, became years, and Rowena grew bitter to the man she once adored. Feeling abandoned and betrayed, she returned to Ul'dah, starting up her own antique business, which would evolve into Rowena's House of Splendors. After her business became popular and extremely profitable, she received a letter from Ramon, telling her that she could find Gerolt in the Black Shroud, in the town of Hurstmill. She traveled there, but the man she found was nothing but a shadow compared to his former self. The fiery passion in his heart was all but spent, and he was drinking away the best years of his life, hammering out kettles of all things. She didn't know how to feel as her fingers traced the wedding ring that Gerolt had forged with his own hands. She wasn't in love with this drunkard, but she couldn't bring herself to abandon him either. Instead, she simply approached him and did what she does best, offered him a business deal. Honest pay for honest work. And through various commissions, as well as help from the Warrior of Light, Rowena gets to see the passionate smith that she fell in love with all those years ago. Or rather, that's how the story goes, at least. Like I said, I got this little nugget from a couple of gentlemen who said they heard it from Drake, who said Gerolt was whining in his sleep after drinking too heavily one day. Drake would not answer any questions in front of Gerolt, and when I inquired Lady Rowena, she gave me the stink eye. Maybe the story is true, maybe it's a drunken fabrication. But no matter what, Gerolt and Rowena clearly have a history, and despite the friction between them, Rowena always seems to keep Gerolt out of trouble and employed. And no matter how annoyed he sounds, Gerolt always seems happy to be around her. Even Ramon seems to pine for the spicy merchant, so maybe there is indeed a thread of truth to this story. But that's something for us to ponder another day. Till next time, my friends, stay safe and be honest to those you love. You never know what bumps in the road you might face, but you can always face them together. Hello everyone! Thanks for staying to the end of the lesson. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, subscribe and like this video to let me know I'm doing well. If there is a topic you'd want me to cover in the future, leave a comment about it and I'll see what I can do. Until next we meet, I'll be researching even more of our world's rich lore to share with you. Till then, stay safe, my friends.